welcome back to Cohesia Connect, connecting conversations. Today we are here talking all things success and faith related, which is going to be such a juicy topic, don't you think?
I'm going to put you under the bus right now and say that you
Wow.
chose this topic. And I think it's important to talk about maybe let's start with why this particular thing, because you were quite like, let's talk about this. Why did you
Mm,
want to talk about this?
Good question. I think based on a lot of things that's going on in the world and with the rise of social media and people becoming a lot more focused on what like the perception of success is having all these luxurious things. But then when I thought about my own personal relationship with faith and what success looks like, it's very different to what the world sees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably we just need to take a step back and really think about, what does success actually mean internally for a person? Because success for some people is showing up on social media and having all these lavish things. And for me, I started to look at success more as an internal kind of journey. And I thought it was just great to talk about and a little bit controversial.
I think it was when you mentioned let's talk about this, I was like, you know what, this is so true. I think you, along with a lot of people right now, are really having this aha moment about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people, I think, potentially post since COVID, that time when everybody had this, period of time, quite long, extended period of time in isolation. I can't go to work. All my normal distractions that I get through the day with actually had to be shelved. There was no place to actually spend our money unless you were doing online shopping, which was terrible. I was super guilty of that. The amount of parcels that came in every day, like Amazon, I think, and all delivery companies made so much money during that period of time. But people were like, well, if I don't have the opportunity to go out, spend this, or show off the things that I think would give me status or the sign of success, what am I doing? And it had a huge impact on people really reevaluating, why am I, firstly, if they're working in certain environments, why am I working in this environment? And for what purpose is that getting me to a sense of, and I think you've mentioned this, internal success, wholeness, completion, whatever you want to call it. And I think a lot of people since that time, and we're coming on 2 years later now, since everything kind of resumed.
Yeah.
But we're all considering, what does that really look like for ourselves? We're not contented with that. Was historically for a long time, this is what is my signifiers of success. I want to talk about, you said there's a shift. Is it bad then that even the desire to have material things, is that a negative thing, or are we still allowed to look to that as some form of a signifier for personal success, or should it really primarily just be internal?
Good question. I think
You're welcome. I did try.
I think it depends on the person. It's quite individualistic in terms of what success looks like. I think that it's okay to still have material things to signify success.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I love nice things.
We can tell.
And I have my dream car that I want to have one day. So, and when I get to that point, it will show, what success may look like. But I think there's too much focus on that materialist world or things that we have, instead of being content internally. This is what I'm happy with. I managed to get from A to B today, and that's a success. And being able to not look for external validation.
Wow. Okay.
I think the world has, and a lot of people, and sorry to put young people under the bus here, but young people have this idea that they need to have some kind of validation for the things that they do, whether they go into a corporate space, whether they're in school, they look towards the teachers to approve or validate what they want to do and the things that they are accomplishing. I've been guilty of this when, you get a bad mark on a paper, for instance, at school, and you're just like, well, my life is going to fall apart. And then you look for that teacher to kind of validate, it's okay, it's fine, and help you on along the way. And I'm not saying that's bad, but there's a lot of focus on this external validation that people have relied on, especially younger people in the next generation coming up. I think literally puts a facade on what success actually means and what it truly should be, as people go through life, really.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, and I think there's definitely some truth to that. Particularly, I think young people in this generation have got a whole other dimension of like, where do I find this validation? And obviously,
Mm,
social media has exploded that in almost a very dangerous way. And we talk about, I think, in our issues in society, that we have this problem
mm,
with how this is impacting mental well-being with young
yeah.
people, because social media, they're looking for, it doesn't mean anything unless it's gone viral. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything unless I've put it on
Mm,
public view, rather than actually these are small wins. You
mm,
privately can enjoy them with
mm,
close friends or family, and it's just as good. Now it's like, it's not as good. And then what comes with that is like bombarded feedback from a wider audience, people that don't have the sense of actually how this is going to impact the recipient.
mm, mm,
And it's kind of out of control. But even looking beyond that, I think you're quite right in terms of external validation. Yes, that kind of normal growing up,
mm-hmm.
it's part of the kind of like figuring out who I am based on what everybody else thinks I should be until we figure
Yeah.
it out ourselves. That's definitely one level. Have we really progressed even in adulthood and maturity about this external validation, do you
Mm.
think?
And to be honest, I'm going to talk about my own experience here.
Mm,
And I think for me, I'm guilty of trying to find that validation, especially when I started branching out in the corporate world.
okay.
I wanted people to tell me that I was doing a good job. I
Mm,
wanted people to see the work that I was doing. And then that was very much early on in my career, because I was so used to getting that feedback from teachers or
yeah,
parents
yeah.
and so on and so forth. So then when I went into the corporate world, it was like, actually, I want that same feedback. Like,
Mm, mm,
if you don't tell me I've done a good job, I'm going to be annoyed.
okay.
But as I've matured throughout the years, I realized that I don't need people to tell me I've done a good job. Once I know I've put in the work, I can see it. I know that there hasn't been any discrepancies or mistakes or anything like that. And even if there were, I could address it quite confidently and put my hand up and take accountability of that. And I think that was my approach as I matured,
Mm,
to say, I know I've done a good job. I know this is the best that I could do. And then once I started to internalize what that success looked like in the corporate world, I then started to see more and more people coming to me and be like, Evelkah, can you do this? Like,
wow.
I've seen this, or you've done a great job here. I would like you to do X, Y, and Z project. And I realized that my internal validation had an impact on the external validation I was then receiving.
That's incredible. I really, really
So
like
I
that.
think it is like a ripple or domino effect, but it all starts internally. And once you internalize what that success looks like for you, other people will naturally see it.
Where do you think we even get this concept of this is what success means?
Movies. Like,
Yeah.
like, if let's go back, Disney. And I think we talked about this in one of our previous podcasts for a different topic. But when we look at Disney, there is a set track record of what success look like for the
Particularly
women
for a woman. Yeah,
for women.
exactly.
You kind of get saved, you get married, then you have a happily ever after. And that translated, those sentiments translated in action films, in, your different film genres and whatever it may be. And we see these people showing up, presenting or putting on a persona that we strive to be like.
Mm, mm.
And then on the other hand is those in the music industry. I'm coming for the creative industries here.
I
not not
can
not
hear that.
not in a bad way,
Oh.
but it's those industries, those creative industries, that has helped to shape, or have been kind of like a filtering system of what success looks like.
Mm,
When you ask people like who their role models is, it's never someone who, apart from their parents, but it's always like a celebrity. Most of the time, shall I say, not everyone, but it's a celebrity, someone who's made it in life, and
mm.
therefore they strive to be like that person. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we then try to compare our success with them and strive to that without acknowledging where our own strengths are,
Mm,
and relying on our own strengths, and not kind of evolving to be something that we're not.
yeah, it's so interesting that you said that, because I was listening to I came across this kind of post on social media, and this is talking about the Disney idea that we're speaking about now. And this might go with me. This might feel kind of like a bit of a segue, but like it's along the lines of the principle that you're talking about now. This gentleman said, like, men and women experience love differently, and he actually claimed that men love more authentically than women. And he was talking in a collective kind of crowd of people for this podcast conversation they were having, and the women were like, wait, what? And so they're American, hence the attempt at the American accent there. And they were like, what do you mean? And this guy, I actually 100% agreed with him. He said that men experience love more authentically. Women love the idea of love. It's fed in from, this is what successful love stories look like. Fed into Disney. He said the way that you are able to fit any guy into this mold that you have experienced through life, that's been taught and filtered down to you and spoken to you directly, you fit every guy into that space. A guy doesn't do that. When he discovers that he is in love with this person, it's not a great moment for them.
Wow.
He says it's not a great moment for them because he's just like, the overwhelming sense of responsibility over this person kicks in. And they're like, that's scary for me. How am I going to do that?
An oh crap moment.
100%. And I found that really interesting. And I think this ties in, and I hope that you can see the connection. I'm not completely off like my rocker, but like, we have been fed, that was, an exclusive example about women and their experience of love, but it's fed this idea of what success should look like. And women will try to, in the context of the love area, will put like maybe someone that really isn't supposed to be there, but I'm putting you into this, I need you to fit this for me. And even there's all these red flags that maybe it's not a good fit or whatever, they will stay in that space until it goes really wrong and then see it as a personal failure afterwards. And I thought that was really interesting, and kind of adopting that same kind of mindset and framing with how we're talking about success
in general.
How many times are we getting into jobs, or we're following career paths because it's supposed to give me this idea of success, and we're trying to live towards it. And it might be that our temperament isn't quite suited for that environment. That actually the things that really are harmonious with our internal selves as whole people are satisfied by doing things in a completely different way. But society has told me that these elements need to be present and visible to the external eyes and audience to justify and validate my sense of success. And that's where I was going with that. Kind of long-winded, but yeah.
No, I totally get you, because we try so hard to fit a square peg
in a round
hole, and we do that with success all the time. Like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna have to switch something up, or I'm gonna have to change something in order for me to be successful, whatever that may look like. And I think something you've touched upon there is failure. I was listening to some people talk recently about embracing failure, embracing, the fact that it's okay to fail. And there is, someone sent this to me literally just this weekend, and the essence of the video said, I don't work with people who haven't failed in life.
Wow. Unpack that one for me, please.
And the whole context was around the fact that if you haven't failed, or if you haven't been through pain, if you can't show me your scars, you're living in a facade. You're living in fairyland, because life isn't meant to be easy. Life isn't meant to be, daisies and roses all the time. In life, you'll have trials and tribulations and challenges that you have to overcome. And if you can, and the person was like, if you can come to me and tell me that your life has been perfect 100%, I don't want anything to do with you. I want to see those battle scars to show that you've actually been through some stuff and you've overcame them. And that's when I know that it's going to be, the right person to work with, or the right person to be around, because you know what pain feels like. And I think when we talk about success, we have this idea that success is all great. It's quite a linear journey to success. We're going up the hill, and there is no challenges up this hill. But quite frankly, it becomes tiring. It becomes hard. You lose motivation. You lose momentum. You lose, interest sometimes. Your passion. You question yourself. And if you don't go through those steps, you don't actually know what success looks like. you don't actually know what it means to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the essence of the conversation. But I thought it was quite interesting when we think about success and we look at these amazing people who've done great things and we think that they just showed up. And
Mm.
most of them would tell you it's because I've been in the ditches, it's because I've been in the
Yeah,
pits,
yeah.
and I managed to claw my way out. And that's how you get there. And I think the key to success is resilience
Mm.
and being able to be consistent. If you don't have those two ingredients in success, I don't know what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
striving for, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah. I think it's so interesting that you talk about that because I think we're also, and are we talking about, we're in this interesting kind of wave of society where
Mm.
success has to be visible. It's on social
Mm.
media, but there's also this other push which I find interesting, and I feel like they're kind of in a tension space.
Mm.
Is the idea of, but you must still be authentic, and what you're talking about really
Mm.
leads into that.
Mm.
And I was listening to someone who I think really inspires me a lot, and they actually got this piece of advice from a boss that they had. It said,
Mm.
find a way to be quick to fail quickly.
Yeah.
Don't wait for like, I need this long stretch of like great successes and then fail. Like, fail quickly, because in every single failure moment or apparent failure moment, there is growth opportunity.
Mm.
And actually, if we were to really shift, and I think this works quite well with what you've just
Mm.
described, is like in that opportunity of growth, you're already succeeding. You were
Mm.
better than you were in the version
Yeah.
before then. Because when we talk about figuratively, like we know that when you work out in the gym, you want to get quick to failure when you're doing weights,
Yeah.
because it shows me that my muscles have now torn. That means I've got capacity to grow.
Mm.
That means the next time, and I get stronger and I get stronger. But it's not pretty. You are sweaty. You are disgusting. You got a lot of time in pain.
Mm.
It's not pretty. And similarly, like we think that our life journey should be different, but that's exactly where growth happens. And that's what success looks like. It's like, this is what it cost me to get there. And sometimes it's a ditch, sometimes it's like I didn't know and then I learned really quickly. And sometimes when there's failure or things don't work out, it's because you're put in a tight spot. Like, there is no other way but to dig really deep and come up with creative ideas that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
That is like really great success. But in order to get there, it's dealing with the uncomfortability of, like you said, the lack of linear, big ditch, sharp edge, cliffhanger, crazy moments. I don't enjoy them personally.
And I don't think anyone does. Like,
But
who
why are
enjoys
we
that?
not talking about that more?
Yeah.
Because think about it, it loses the devastation. If I now, in my just turned 40, it's crazy.
Whoop, whoop.
But
Doesn't she look stunning, people?
You're so sweet. But what I do, like, I seem to be embracing this more. Why didn't I do that before? When I was growing up, if we, and I come from an education background, and a lot of our role is not just about teaching them curriculum. You're teaching people from a standpoint of like, you're actually a life model, an immediate role model for me to follow, and life skill elements, which I had a lot of opportunity to share with my students. Why did I not lead with that? That be ready to fail quickly. These are really bad marks. What are we going to do about this now? Because, like you said, that's what's building resilience. When they get to like their next stage, they embrace competition. We don't really do that well. They to embrace, oh my gosh, like they did so much better than me, because that means they showed me what is possible. But then also that means that you find yourself digging for traits and characteristics of strength, endurance, patience. These are the things that set apart, if I may be real women and men in the world. That quality of individuality, that quality as a person would make me successful. That actually the byproduct is the external material things, but the true success is like, it wasn't necessarily the goal, but the destination and what I learned across along the way and picked up, and the people that I connected with who then enriched my life. People are really the currency that bring this stuff in.
100%.
Are we talking about that? That's what you should be doing. We are in a society that talks about like, it's very self, self individualistic. Like, I am the one that's arrived.
All about the self.
It's me first, self-actualizing. But actually, to get somewhere great, and I know there's a proverb that talks about that. If you want to go somewhere far, you got to go together. If you want to go somewhere fast, you can go alone. But like, when you get there, is that worth it? So a lot of things said there, but love to hear your thoughts on. And I think in lieu of what you're talking about, these are the bits that really kind of get to the success stage.
There's a couple of things that were pinging off my head as you were speaking.
Go.
I'm gonna try and see if I can remember it all. But firstly, when you mentioned about teachers and being able to kind of be in that space and educate and, teaching them to learn
Yeah.
to fail quickly,
Yeah.
I reflect on my sister in school, and whenever she didn't do well, the teacher was just like, oh, it's okay.
Okay.
It was just like, it's okay, that's fine. And I'm just like, no, it's not okay. That's not a good grade.
Yeah.
That's a failure. Tell her it's a failure.
Mm.
In order, because if she thinks that that's the baseline to what success can be like for her, she's going to be hugely mistaken when she goes out in the real world,
Yeah.
and then be actually faced with failure and don't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this for all teachers. Teachers are brilliant.
I understand what you're saying. I wonder if actually we need to take just a kind of a little step back from that, in terms of, I think we need to really look and address that failure is, I think, historically been associated with an idea of shame. And I think if we think like, if you failed, it's a shame, on the sense of like, people have this attached that to a sense of self-worth.
Yes.
Sense of like, am I good enough?
Yes.
A sense of, should I be around if I'm not just bringing success to the table? And that is something I think relatively controversial, or just something that's not necessarily as widely spoken about.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's where we need to start from. If we get comfortable with like that, my failure is also an opportunity for growth, and like, let's celebrate that. If I was to come to a board meeting, for example, and say, guys, I absolutely blew this opportunity and this is what I learned in it.
Yeah.
Take this from me. Don't do this next time.
Yeah.
This is what we've noticed. It actually illuminated that we've got some issues and weak points in our system, or we've got some weak points in our procedure, or some weak points in our approach of our product, whatever that may be. Do we think that would be such a bad, people will be coming, if not, people will be failing quickly, like we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
That means they'll be coming up with more innovative ideas to like to mitigate. Would that not be stronger, would be my challenge to that moment. And if we were to start thinking like that, is that not the way that also we would be encouraging children? Children are super impressionable, or young people are impressionable. We know that. And you spoke about like, now that we've got to this place where for some reason there's a gap in even how we're training them up in this world, and it lacks resilience. That isn't okay. It's not going to help them for the realities of what life has really been doing. People thought that if I went to school, went to university, it's going to pay my bills. We've spoken about this in previous podcasts. That has sufficiently shown us that that is actually not enough for like just basic living only. Particularly those that have been like fed that. And it isn't really like helping people out in that kind of way. And going back to this, I would question, like, should that not be our kind of approaches to how we're rearing our kids in education spaces, as role models, as mentors? Like, get them like, what have you learned in this? Like, this is interesting that happened. Let's talk about it, rather than like, I'm so ashamed of you. This isn't good enough. And for a child, that's super personal. As adults, that still feels super personal, because that's where we learned how to engage with failure early on. I think all of these things are kind of connected, and somehow or another, where's the part that you challenge or you address first? Do you know what I mean? About understanding that concept of success, and the part that failure really is a necessity in order of playing its part in what it means when you get to that success kind of place.
No, definitely. And I think the connection between success and self-worth
is
huge. And I think when we start to actually tear down the kind of the blocks around it, we start to realize that there is something a lot bigger at play than just ourselves. And I think, like you rightly said, success has always been me, 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 me. And it's not about how am I actually making an impact on the world, which leads me into the more kind of faith related stuff. And you know, when this last week, as most people may know from my platforms and hear me, I'm a Christian, and Carla is also a Christian, and she's a gospel singer, by the way. Hope Jean. Putting a plug there for
big
Hope Jean.
Big drop right there. Okay.
Please follow them on social media, Instagram, all the places. Where do you have your music?
Spotify. Amazon. It's all there.
It's all there. Hope Jean.
Can we focus on our conversation? Yes, thank you.
Apart from that, but when we look at specifically the Christian faith, which we're both a part of, I've been, for some reason, this last week and a bit, my kind of word of the week has been fire. And
Okay.
I don't know.
Set it alight, girl. Set it alight.
And as I was hearing more and more people talk about it, I was hearing people talk about it, I was hearing it in songs, and I'm just like, why is this word keep coming to me? And as I was listening to numerous people and numerous songs about fire, if I'm gonna look at this in a metaphorical way, if we look at success like fire, we would have a very different perspective, because when we see fire or flames or whatever it is, we think bad. And I think actually, let's look at fire as failure. We see bad, we're just like, oh my god, I'm not going to do that. If I put my hand in it, it's going to be too hot, I'm going to get burnt, I'm going to get hurt, I'm going
Yeah.
to
There's damage, there's destruction. Yeah.
like people see it as a whole kind of destruction kind of element. And we tell kids, don't play with fire.
Right, right.
But in all of my kind of encountering with the word fire and people, I started to gain a different perspective of fire. And fire was more like a cleansing. It was more of, resilience. If you go through the fire and you come out a lot stronger than you went in. There is a sense of transformation that has that has happened in that fire. There's a sense of renewal, regeneration. There is a sense of
burning of dross,
like everything
takes that
falling off.
impurity. Yeah.
You're cleansed.
Yeah.
And as I was listening to people, and one thing this preacher and pastor said in one of the YouTube videos I was watching, she ended it by saying, I am fine with being in fire.
Wow. I need to hear that. Break that one down.
And that was by Pastor Cora Jakes. I'm in love with the Jakes family.
We're here again. Okay.
My obsession. But it was, when she said it, I was just like, I had a light bulb moment, and I'm just like, it's okay to go through the fire. It's okay to be burnt.
Wow.
It's okay to have scars. It's okay to have all of this, because you know what? At the end of it, there will be success. At the end of it, there will be transformation. There will be renewal. There will be purity. And that, for me, from a Christian and faith perspective, that is what success looks like. When you've went through the pits, when you've been through all of that, but you still came out on top, and you were resilient, you were consistent, you had faith that God showed up in the midst, even when you thought he wasn't. That for me is what success looks like. And I think now, it's okay to play with fire. And I'm saying this metaphorically. Please, people, don't actually
do not actually try that at home. Thank you.
Don't try
no,
that,
please.
We'll have to call the fire department. But metaphorically, it's okay to experience failure. It's okay to experience hurt, because that, by the fact of you going through that, by the fact of you sitting in it, by the fact of being fine in it, you're going to come out a lot better than you went in. And you're going to start to realize that internally, mentally, spiritually, physically, you start to change. You start to become a whole new person that you thought you would never become. And at that point, you're going to look back and be like, that is what success looked like. That journey that I had to go through, and the fact that I'm still here kicking, that is a success. And like you rightly said at the start, then you have the material things as a byproduct of all of that.
Wow. I feel like, where does one go from here? And I really love what you said, that this analogy of fire. And also, like, if you think about it, fire when it's contained brings warmth. Fire, when it's contained, it brings energy. It's used for energy purposes.
Yeah.
Fire, when it's used, particularly like, and I obviously, anyone here who loves jewelry, like good jewelry, like gold, goes through fire and burning, and then it is molded into something beautiful.
Yeah.
But you don't get that in a raw form. You get that once it's been gone through the fire and that process of cultivation. And it's tough going. It is tough going. And I think, like, I love what you said, like that kind of that inspo drop that Cora Jakes had said, like, I'm okay if I'm in fire because it means this. I think, how do we determine when this is fire in a positive sense, that something good is coming out and that we can see that. Or what I also don't want to perpetuate and kind of give off in a conversation like this is, if you are always putting out fires, that this is okay in terms of a lifestyle of living, because I don't think we're here to advocate for that, because sometimes when you get to that place, that's not successful living. If you're constantly putting out fires, it's like something is not working, and perhaps we need to go back to like, actually, where's maybe something that I'm not doing well, that I have to keep, like, that's my life is putting out a fire here, because I've not built something that is strong as a good foundation, or hasn't had a discipline to it that actually enables me to do well in terms of moving on from one step to another. Because you can't grow if you're always putting out fires either.
Agreed.
That is not successful. So just out of that, I wanted to kind of make sure that that is quite clear as well. But I think the essence of what you're saying is just so true. Looking at my challenges, because I think I can't speak for anyone else, but certainly, and I remember this came for me, and this might be quite personal, but I'm okay to share that, because hopefully this will empower someone else. Is I remember when I first got married, and people always say, oh, like the first few years are a real challenge. And to be honest, I thought I actually had a good run in terms of, I was probably the last out of my circle to get married, and he got married at 37 years old, which, you know, from a lot of people, that's quite late on, but actually now that's becoming more common. But from my generation or my circle, cohort of friendship groups and stuff like that, I'm probably the last to get married. And I had such great friendships that in all of the kind of communities and friends that I had walked alongside with through since uni and onwards, they had never hidden from me the truth of their challenges in being married. So I thought, as someone who'd gone through some tough friendship struggles, we've shared some of that before in some of our relationship kind of series of our podcast. But also I was just like, you know, I think I'm quite ready for this. You know, I'm not coming in there doughy-eyed. I've got zero experience with life, or I'm expecting things to be gravy. But actually, and I've been equipped with, like, I'm going into this season with an expectation that challenge will be there. And it won't devastate me, because I expected this is reality of life. I think when you have not been fed that, and we spoke about where we've been fed really poor, distorted cultural ideas about love or marriage or whatever, that can really cripple someone, and it's devastating. And then you can't tell, actually, this is a normal process of growth. So I thought I came in okay with some decent tools. Until you get there. Until you get there and you realize that your challenges are still your challenges, and they're a challenge because you've not been here before. But I also, and the reason why I bring that up is because I actually thought, like, I thought when I got here, this still wouldn't feel this bad. I thought that when I got here, this wouldn't feel like, why is this a struggle for me? Why are these things my challenges? And I remember the sense of, like, and sharing this with my sister, and she said, but Carla, this is about what it means to be vulnerable. This is what it means to, like, when you go through, this is, if you really had this down, then there would be no growth. You would not see these areas. These are issues of improvement, areas that need to be adjusted. My mindset needed to be open to various things. And these are two healthy people that had great friendships, came from, like, great family kind of, you know, setups as well. We were really privileged in that, and so grateful that that was our start. And these are two whole people coming together, and then realizing, actually, these things don't, how that made us, can't speak for my husband, but how that made me feel, like, I thought feels like a bit of a failure. This is fire that I wasn't ready for. And, like, that's difficult to stomach. And maybe that's pride, or maybe that's something else. But I did want to talk about that in terms of when we think about success. And in that moment, that was real fire. That was real adversity. That was really tough. I did not feel like, yes, this is part of my success story. Do you know what I mean? And I just wanted to share, like, that's what that authentically really feels like for me personally, about walking through a sense of, like, when you're going through fire, when you're going through challenges, when you're going through growth, and when stuff is not gravy. And we celebrated 3 years last month, which was amazing. So happy, and we're so grateful. But, like, I look at him and I'm like, we're so different from those challenges. What we talk about now is at such a different space. Had we not gone through that fire, had we not gone through that challenge and submitted to the process. And I think that's also another thing. If you really want to be successful, you got to be down with, like you say, be comfortable with the fire in this healthy way again. and be comfortable. Like challenges are going to come and go, and it's going to challenge what you think you're established on. It's
Yes.
going to challenge where you think I've come to a space where actually I'm good here. Are you? Until something else illuminates there are works or areas of improvement. Be okay with leaning into that. That is actually going to determine when you're going to feel successful. It's at that point where I think so many of us, and I'm guilty of this too, give up at that point. I'm in a marriage covenant. That's not an option.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever been through something enough to this point where I'm like, I have to just lean into it. I have to just keep going there. I have to just keep figuring that out.
So I guess my question to you, and I'm sure the audience will be keen to know, how can we distinguish contained fire and fire that we're constantly putting out?
This is a good question. Oh my gosh. I think and this again might be quite not controversial, but this might hit home hopefully in some places. If you find like, I'm constantly like, oh, I've got to quickly make a plan here and douse this fire out here, and then something else is coming up over there. We have to take a step back. Why are these fires happening? You have to be really honest and take a good look in the mirror. If the common denominator between all those fires is you, we have to take a look there.
Wow.
Let's, and I have to think this way as well.
Yeah.
Do I have a system in place where that fire is probably going to happen again unless I've done something about that won't happen again?
Yeah.
And something that's leaning into, have to take some serious, conscious decisions and stock and evaluation of myself. Am I the starter of these fires?
Wow.
In terms of like, if we're going to take, for example, our relationships, and they keep kind of like going to these terrible spaces, we're always burning bridges. We're always like in the middle, we're starting the conflict. Yeah. Let's go there. Why is that happening? If it's an insecurities, a pressure point, you need to go there and fix it, because that will just continue to perpetuate, and you're putting out the same fire, whether it's a different person every single time. And if, again, the common denominator is you, we've got to figure that out.
Yeah.
If it is our approach to say, for example, we speak a lot about business here. Yes. Obviously, we're a company. We're into business like the first time. So we're sharing our journey very candidly, and hopefully people will be merciful. But we hope that like the truth of our vulnerability of like us trying to figure out helps people. Yeah. But think about it like, is my system in place really giving me the success that I need? Yeah. Is my work ethic really that am I doing all the stuff? Yeah. If I don't do some of those basic principles, I'm going to continuously put the same fires out. Yeah. So that would be kind of my maybe basic response to that. I don't have that all together, but I think so far what I've seen, those are the things you need to start looking at to begin with. Yeah.
So ultimately you're saying you have to take a step back and look at what's happening. Yeah, for sure. You have to take a bird's eye view, because if you don't know why this fire has started or why it keeps happening, then you're going to continuously repeat that cycle. Yeah. And I think that's so good. And, a lot of people, like you rightly said, are afraid to be vulnerable, but also afraid to look inside.
Because that means we have to change.
Yeah.
That is something I don't like change. Tell me, okay, the one person I know that loves change will be my husband. Weird guy. Love him to pieces. He's like, oh, I love being here. It's great. I have to change. And I'm like,
are you okay?
But like, what a wonderful temperament to have, because he never gets held up by the last season. I'm so attached to this, so I can't adjust. Yeah. He's like, whatever it takes to grow, because that means I'll be better than what I was yesterday. He has caught that on super early. Wow. And I'm like, that's new, and I'm embracing that principle. So grateful that he's brought that into my life. Like, and my life has changed like crazily since just partnering and living life with someone who has that temperament. I'm grateful for that, because he's like, be good that things shift quickly. Be good with things don't have to take a long time to adjust in the next. Be good with change. Yeah.
And I think it's so true, because when I think about my own personal experience and journey with change, I've never been adverse to change. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I love change.
I think there's a relative difference between that.
But I would embrace it when it comes along. Yeah. And then I was speaking to my sister over the weekend, and she said to me, Evelkah, you've changed so much. And I'm just like, really? And I think sometimes we get so caught up being in the journey, being in the process, we forget to actually take a step back and be like, well, actually, look how far I've come.
100%. 100%.
And when she said that, I was just like, why you think so? And she was just like, the way you speak, the way you you talk, the way you do stuff. She's just like, your whole demeanor has changed. Like, you're like such a different person, even down to the way you look.
Mm.
And I'm just like, wow, she sees that. And
Yeah.
for me, that is so great to hear, because I know now that I'm not the same Evelkah you knew me 2, 3, 4 years ago. And it will be insane for me to go through what I've gone through and not change.
Mm.
So I think when she said that, I just took a moment and I was just like, wow, I have. And you know what? I'm actually bloody proud from where I've come from and the things that I've done in the last, recent years. And I think when we talk about taking a step back, it's not just taking a step back to see where those fires are occurring, but to see which fires you've changed, which fires led to that transformation, or, acknowledging how far you've come, because when you went through that fire, like you had a battle scar to show for it, and you've came out better for it. And being, I would say, embracing that fire and being able to look at it and be like, well, thank you for the change that that I've went through. But like you rightly said, on the other hand, about acknowledging where the fires that you keep putting out,
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
no matter how far you've come, there will be certain things that are repetitive behaviors
Yeah.
that you constantly have to be on top of. And every new season you have a new thing, or a continuous thing that you're like, why does this keep happening? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so being able to be aware and conscious
Yeah.
of those journeys and those fires or challenges or whatever it may be.
I wanted to go back just a little bit to mention, we spoke about like faith and success,
Yes.
and I wanted to talk about like, what does that look like from what you've experienced
Mm,
yourself. And you've mentioned like you're in you're kind of a different kind of stage of your journey now,
mm,
and I think this is what's feeding into some of your sister's
yeah.
feedback, in terms of she gets front row seats to watch this, and from an authentic way. You can't
Yeah.
put a best foot forward, that she knows you too well from the before
Too well.
to kind of the spaces that you're in now. In your view, like, what does, when we incorporate the faith element, and we spoke that really the success needs to be
Mm,
starting from the inside,
mm,
what do we think that could look like, even from an aspirational level? This is not saying that you've
yeah.
arrived, but what do we feel that could look like?
Good question. And I think during my process of change and becoming deeper in my faith, success has definitely looked like selfless.
Interesting.
I've learned that it's not all about me. Um, and I think a lot of people think that being selfish is okay. And, there are times when you should be selfish and protect your energy and your space. But for the most part, I've started to realize that actually it's not about me, it's about God. And, every day I pray that whatever spaces or conversations or encounters I have, that
Mm,
people see God through me. Like,
mhm,
I'm irrelevant. I'm just the temple or vessel that is being used here. But ultimately, it's how I come across and making
mm,
sure
mm,
that
mm,
everyone see the grace of God in everything that I touch and do. And I think for me, that what success feels like. And in doing that, I've started to see people gravitate to me. I've started to see people, ask questions. And, for me, that was just like, I'm not doing it to be boastful. I'm not doing this because I want to do it, but I'm doing this for the greater good, and the greater purpose of what I'm here for, and to complete my mission. And I was speaking with your sister just yesterday, and I went to her and I was just like, what can I do to serve in the
mm,
church? What can I do to give back? Like, how can I be of assistance? Because as I'm maturing and I'm still growing in my faith. I've definitely not have arrived, and there's still a lot of work I need to do.
that is a lifetime journey.
And that
No
is,
one arrives,
yeah.
like arrives
So
arrives.
I'm just going through
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and in this process of journeying with God and my faith in general, I'm starting to realize that actually success looks like the people that I've been able to impact around me. um and even, I used to always say when I was younger that I wanted to be a humanitarian. God knows, like, as a 9-year-old, you don't know what humanitarian actually
Means,
is
yeah.
or means or what they do. You see someone on TV
But we
helping
admire
people.
the tenacity. A 9-year-old girl that felt that way. That's amazing.
I was just like, everyone wanted to be a doctor, a teacher, and I'm just like, I want to be a humanitarian. But now I realize that I want to be able to impact people in a way that is positive, to help people to get to realization and actualization of themselves and, some sort of awakening. And I think, through the people that I've met in recent years, I've definitely felt that, I'm building up a community, I'm building up resource that would enable me to do that. And for me, that is what success currently looks like. It may change, success
Or
changes
develop,
and
yeah.
develops over
Yeah.
time. But for me, that is what I'm aspiring to do. And that could be in different capacities. That can be, in our business, how we're impacting people and other businesses
100%.
to think differently, to act differently, and things like that. But also in my personal life, whether that's through mentoring or whatever it may be, how am I showing up on social media that will inspire people or impact people in a positive way?
I love that.
What about yourself?
Good question. I love that I throw these questions out.
I know.
I'm never really prepared for when they come back to me.
You should get used to it by now.
But I think it's a really good moment to even have that time. Like, when often do I reflect on something? What do I feel is successful to me?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about certainly from a spiritual capacity,
Yeah.
I think for me, I a lot of what you said resonates in terms of, do I feel I've exhausted everything that I've been given? In the sense that it's supposed to do something that's reflecting my creator, reflecting the goodness of what has been gifted to me or placed inside of me for the purpose that he gets the glory.
Yeah.
And that's a constant thing. And it's not something that just happens potentially in a kind of a church setting or something like that. It's so much more than that. Our business is an extension of that. Every single day when I'm in my professional hat on, that is still at play. When I'm with my family, that should still be at play. When I'm, socializing or meeting or connecting with new people, that particularly diverse people that don't think like me or don't subscribe to, the values that we're speaking about or these philosophies, that's still at play. And I feel like for me, success will feel like I would love to get to kind of entering glory in the capacity of like, I exhausted everything.
Yes.
I squeezed out every piece of juice of what that looked like. And whether it's using my skills well, and that I used it to that end, using my gifts and develop them to a standard of excellence. That takes work. Gifts come without repentance, as we speak about within the Christian faith. But actually, it's up to you to discipline it. It's up to you to do the work with it. What have you done with it? And I want to get to that space where, for me, because of a deep intimacy with my faith, that all of those things got their day in glory.
Yeah.
And it just puts that on display. And like you said, that's nothing to do with me.
No.
That's everything to do with reflecting back to the person that gave it to me in the first place.
100%. And I think that's a great way to leave people to reflect and think about what success may look like them, and whether that's from a faith related point of view, or if not, being able to recognize, because I think either way the principles are the same. We need to ensure that we're resilient. We need to ensure that we fail quickly. We need to ensure that we're consistent, and being able to identify the fires that are toxic and identify the fires that are contained. And I think that's such an important reminder for a lot of us, because we have to learn to be uncomfortable with change, but we also need to know whether that uncomfortability is going to set you back or is going to propel you forward. And being able to look inside yourself, be vulnerable, is an important thing, an important skill that we all should be developing as we mature over the years. So we hope this conversation inspires you. Definitely, certainly gives you something to reflect on, and see how your own journey with success, what that may look like, and how you can evolve from here. And hopefully you've taken some really golden gems from us. So thank you for watching.
See you next time. Bye. Wow, we did.